There has been a destructive force unleashed on this town such as I have never seen.
Oh my God, I don't believe this. It's not happening!
We have got a poltergeist!
Okay, well, folks, I can do a clearance, but it's not going to be cheap. Although I do offer a 6-month guarantee.
That fellow takes us totally for granted.
Hey, Stuart, in or out, huh?
Frank Bannister had a remarkable ability
Psychic investigator?
to communicate with the dead.
You can see spirits?
Emanations are normally confined to the cemetery,
You cannot push spirits around!
although they do escape.
And an uncanny knack
We're gonna scare the living daylights out of your parents.
for making a profit off the living.
We're supposed to be his business partners.
Everyone says that you're a fraud, but I've seen what you can do.
Give it up, Frank. Death ain't no way to make a living.
But now, some things put the fear of death in the living
What is happening to me?
and sent the dead running for their lives.
I've seen a figure in a cape.
That was the soul collector. When your number's up, that's it.
Frank, we got problems. All these murders that have been going on in Fairwater, they're gonna pin them on you.
From Universal Pictures and Robert Zemeckis
You're next, pal.
and acclaimed director Peter Jackson.
We don't stop till the screaming starts, you dig?
The Frighteners.
So, welcome to this special edition DVD release of The Frighteners. The Frighteners was a movie that I made down here in New Zealand back in 1995, in the days before Lord of the Rings and King Kong. It's 10 years ago now, so I guess this is the 10th anniversary release. Looking back on my filmmaking career, The Frighteners is a very important movie for me because it is the very first time that I've gone beyond making an independent New Zealand film, which is how my first few movies were financed. They were very, very low budget. And with The Frighteners, I had my first access to what felt like a very big budget at the time. By today's standards, it was quite small, but it was a whole different world for me. I'd never worked with a big movie star before like Michael Fox, had never done anything as complicated with visual effects before. You have to realize that in 1995, when a lot of The Frighteners was being made, CG effects were very new. It was the beginning of that whole trend. So one of the things that happened with the Frighteners was that our own digital effects company down here in New Zealand called Weta expanded from having one single computer to about 35 computers, I think, is what we ended up with at the height of the effects on the Frighteners. And there's about 500 CG shots in the film. It was during the post-production on the Frighteners that we were, everyone was feeling very stressed. We were trying to get all these 500 CG shots done. And I was coming under a stress all of my own because I was wondering, gosh, what on earth am I going to do with all these computers when the movie is finished? And it was at that time, it was about November 95, while we were just in the thick of post-production, that the idea of doing a fantasy film came about, that I thought, okay, well, what type of movie could I make that is going to need a big computer infrastructure? And the idea of doing the Lord of the Rings came into my mind then, and the first phone calls about Lord of the Rings were made during the post-production on the Frighteners because I was starting to stress out about having all these computers and not going to have a film to actually use them on. So for me, it's a really critical movie that connects Heavenly Creatures, a low-budget independent film, with Lord of the Rings, a mega-budget international movie. It's the film that allows me to move between those two very different worlds. Now, this version of the movie of The Frighteners is actually 14 minutes longer than the theatrical release. It's the director's cut, I guess, or special edition release. And this is the first time that that particular edition has been available on DVD. So it's very exciting for me to present this film to you in its extended form. So sit back and I hope you enjoy The Frighteners.
Will be punished.
Asshole.